Howdy my dudes, Random Fight Fan here, and I'm going to go over exactly what you need to do to prepare for the next season. First of all, you're going to want some tools to succeed. So up the screen here I got Path of Building. If you do not have that, you absolutely should download it. It is basically everything you need to theory craft a character. Here is the Never Sink filter blade for loop filters. If you don't have a loop filter, definitely get one. And Never Sink is the most famous and commonly used one for a reason. It is very good. It's not the one I'm using, but it is definitely the one I would suggest you look at first and foremost. Craft of Exile, absolutely essential because I have very good reason to believe that crafting is coming into the game this season, and I think everybody is going to enjoy it. This will help you essentially craft items without spending your currency in game by preparing what to do with the emulator and simulator by building items. There's lots of videos on how to use this. I suggest getting comfortable with it if you want to learn how to craft, because I am about 99% certain crafting is coming into the game because of this lovely little teaser from GGG. And finally, here is the Mobalytics campaign layout guide. I found this to be incredibly helpful. Going into my second point of picking a class you want to start with is the Huntress. So I use this to go through Act 1 with a Ranger, and the reason why the Ranger is because I start at the same point on the passive tree, just like how Witch and Stormweaver, whichever the base class name is for that, they start in the exact same area, and this allowed me to go forward and see how the tree feels, what's good, and just not having to worry about or think about my early levels. As you scroll down, it'll show you the basic layout for the areas. I would never remember any of these, no matter how much I looked at them, but just having this slightly to the side of the game or on a different screen allowed me to blitz through the campaign in about 2 hours, which is not the campaign, Act 1 in about 2 hours, which is quite fast for me, because I full cleared it and I went at a casual pace with no special gear at all. I was pretty happy with it. I feel like this worked really well, and I think it's going to help out a lot of people. Now, like I said, you want to definitely pick what class you want to start with, and don't worry about being meta. It's much more important to pick something and have fun than it is to be overpowered and bored. And so far I am quite confident with the Huntress, and I know a lot of people are going to be picking it, but there's also potentially the Druid. I don't know for sure, but I have reason to believe so. And also other ascendancies are going to be released in the next patch, and definitely learn what you're going to want to play and stick with it. Number 3, you're going to want to theory craft. So obviously there is no way to know exactly what's going to be coming out with spears yet, and the spear skills and Huntress and everything, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't theory craft, because even if what you know is not going to be what's in the game exactly, having a game plan is going to help you out going forward. And so what I've learned for the spear skills is that there is one spear in particular that seemed to have 10% base crit chance, which would make it actually viable for crit, which is incredible for damage, because also with insane items, that new extremely overpowered helmet that makes everything or every enemy nearby be considered on low health would work incredibly efficiently with this character. You are near the enemies on low health nodes, and you would be able to have lucky damage with them, and lightning damage being lucky is ridiculous. And going forward with that, we have kind of an idea of how to use the helmet. We have the class that we're going to use, an idea of kind of sort of what build you're going to be doing, and now looking at the skills. For spears, I saw 5 skills that are standoutish, that are worth talking about with what little information we know about them. So Whirling Slash, it builds up stages in a huge AoE around you and gets even wider AoE, and at 3 stages it does 4.5 times more multiplier, which is ridiculous. If it works like how I imagine it will be clearing screens and just annihilating pretty much everything, including potentially bosses. Now Puncture looks like it's working almost like Flicker Strike, because it says it targets an enemy and it's an AoE, and it does more damage based on how far you go. So this puncture could potentially be a ridiculous speed farmer going through maps extremely fast, especially if the Herald tech still works. And if that tech doesn't work, depending on how fast it is, it could be ridiculously powerful. Now, Ice Spear, it has an insane amount of damage, but it has a potentially awkward arming time because it needs to fly a certain distance before it does its full damage. Then there's another really cool sounding ability called Spear Field, but it may be terrible because it says currently right now that it has maximum 70 spears, and if it's maximum 70 in the way that it dictates its area, it could just not work well at all. And then finally, Storm Spear is the one that I really hope is not launched in the way that it's currently written, because what it says is cannot split, pierce, fork, chain, or return. It just hits the first enemy and goes around with lightning explosions. But if it does not split, pierce, fork, chain, or return, it will be just much worse than the D2 Javazon that we all hoped it would be. Now finally, when the season starts, don't hold on to your currency. Items start out cheap, and everybody's kind of poor, and so you're going to want to take full advantage of any currency that you have, because if you were around for the start of the season, Season 1, items got 10 times more expensive overnight on the first time that Divine Orbs spiked in price, and they just got more and more expensive every day. And yes, I know that you had less currency at that time as well, but if you're able to buy items, you can get items that are potentially hundreds of divines for like single digits divines early on into the season. And depending on future nerfs, you should be looking at the items that dictated this current season's meta, things like the Hands of Wisdom in Action, the Trample Toes, and the Ingenuity Belts, and everything else, because if they don't get heavily nerfed, they're going to be strong again next season, and you'll be wanting to get them before they get ridiculously expensive, because if they dictated the meta once, they'll be dictating it again. And even if you don't want to use it, that's fine. Keep it for a couple days and you'll double your currency, no problem. Now that's my quick and dirty tips for getting yourself ready for the next season. There is another very important tip, and it is entirely aesthetic. If you're going to be spending money, that's entirely up to you. You don't have to. But there is something else, and it's not in the game yet, but it's skill gem effects. This can be build defining. I just made a cat build in Path of Exile 1 because I wanted to fling cats at people like the crazy cat lady from The Simpsons, and I had a wonderful time with it. There's potentially a whole bunch of skill gem effects that are going to be put into the game next season, and if you can find one that just makes you giddy every time you look at it and you're willing to put money in the game, you're going to regret not using it anytime you have it available. And this aestheticness is worth putting builds around. Like, I don't really have anything super amazing. The other cool ones I have are the black holes with Vortex and Frostbolt that are also not in the game. But if you are able to use these and make a build around it, and you're able to make it work, you're going to enjoy yourself so much more than any other kind of build that you would be putting together. It's just, it feels special. But that's all I have to say. Thanks again, everybody, for showing up, and I can't wait for the patch later tonight, or not patch, but the video later tonight, and I look forward to theory crafting with all of you. See you, my dudes.